happens to the best of us. When plants start wilting and when their leaves are falling. But what if I told you that your plant might not actually be dead? Here are 5 things that you can do to save your plant, along with checking if it's even alive or not. The first step you must do to save your plant is actually determining what problem it has, because the solution to a problem is finding the root cause. For example, this fig tree is clearly in transplant shock since it's losing some of its leaves and it really hasn't pushed out much growth. It's losing another one right here. But of course, it doesn't necessarily mean that the tree is dead. Another great example could actually be this Washingtonia robusta, because it hasn't really done much. Sure, it's really green, but it's always stayed this size. And even the trunk is starting to peel. And once again, we have to find the root problem, which in this case, it's probably the Musa Baju leaves that are covering it up. For step number 2, you want to traditionally cut and get rid of all the leaves that are turning yellow, brown, and red. Dead branches also count as well. It rarely brings any nutrients to the actual tree whatsoever. For example, sometimes this tree has turned red in one of the branches and you would usually just trim it off or take off the red needles. This is because you don't want the red needles and red leaves to spread the disease to the whole tree if it has one. You also have to make sure you look for these kind of colors. These kind of colors on the leaves highly suggest that the plant is in stress. And if you want additional info on the plant or how it's sick, you can always use one of those plant scanning apps. Step number 3 is watering. Watering. Traditionally, it's very important to water your plants when they're going through this stress. Only in rare situations would you not want to water a plant. But especially when it comes to transplant shock or when the plant is desperately needing nutrients, water is what gives it life. For example, this Dawn Redwood literally shedded all its needles, and while it was dying, I kept watering it, and look at that. You have new growth sprouting out. So sometimes your plants just may need more water, especially if they're saplings. Also with cuttings, you do not want to let these guys sit without constant watering. Step number 4 is also super important. If these plants aren't put in good soil, then you can't expect good results out of them. You should also resort to putting a lot of mulch, because mulch helps keep the humidity and overall it just helps with the environment. It's really good for the plants and it looks nicer. It also kind of prevents the soil from being washed away from the rain. Also consider getting some fertilizer, as it might help, but you don't have to over fertilize. And the 5th and final step, which is the most important out of them all, is patience. Because I've seen so many people automatically assume that a plant is dead and they just take it out, cut it, or kill it when it was actually in reality coming back. You should be giving these plants 2 to 3 weeks or even a month, because you never know. A lot of these plants take time to recover and come back depending on how bad their situation is, right? So be patient. Just because the leaves are dying doesn't automatically mean it's dead. Now, one of the things that you could actually do to determine if your tree is actually alive or not is by scratching the bark. If you scratch the bark and you just see it's all brown, nothing left, then it's dead. But look, as you can see, we have some green in there. So that means that this stem or cutting is alive. This can also work with saplings, plants, you name it. Another common occurrence is that the bark starts splitting. This usually happens for bigger trees. But do not panic. This does not automatically mean that the tree is dying. Yes, it could be a bad sign in some situations, but on the other hand, some trees grow so fast, like this invasive Chinese tallow, that the bark starts splitting because it's expanding so fast to the point where it can't catch up. So in my situation, I'm pretty sure this tree is fine. So next time your tree seems to be dying, don't panic and examine it carefully. Make sure to like and subscribe if you guys enjoyed this video, and see you guys in the next one.